called Halal Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah Ba'Shem Rachakwadash Yahweh, being the true name of the Father, as the world ignorantly calls God. Yahweh Shah, being the true name of the Son, as the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, along with the Holy Spirit, who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect, and to the brothers that's pushing this truth and sincerity, risking their life and freedom to do so. And shalom to the brothers and sisters that are listening and learning. This is your brother Labah, coming to you with another lesson in truth. And I'm going to be getting into the psychology, right, of brainwashing and indoctrination, right? So I'm going to put all this together through the spirit. So when you see, this started when we was very small, right? What they did is inundated us with these images, right? So, they put it in their literature, they put it in their movies, right? They put it everywhere you look, right? In your stores, in your everywhere you can think of, right? And they push these lies through their media, right? Through their books, through their institutions, right? Which would be the collegiate, the school systems, and so on and so forth, right? And that's why they push that false narrative of so-called white and so-called black, right? So they can always be using the so-called white supremacy to rule over you, not only within the flesh, but also within the mind and the spirit, right? Psychological warfare. So let's go to this term brainwashing. So most of our people are brainwashed and they don't know it. And that's some trippy stuff because, if you try to tell most of our people they brainwashed, they going to probably get offended in most cases, right? So let's go here. So brainwashing goes back into these images. That's a part of this witchcraft of this devil. He was able to push his Renaissance artwork on the minds of our people because these images live in your mind forever unless you throw them out, right? So when you think about Moses, you think about Yahweh Shai, you think about Peter, right? You think about the great prophets. What comes up in our mind is these images, right? This is high level witchcraft on the mind. This is psychological warfare, right? To the highest degree. And the so-called white man has brainwashed our people. This definition, brainwashing. It says brainwashing is said to reduce its subjects' ability to think critically or independently. That's heavy right there, man. You gotta really think about what this saying. Because most of our people can't think independently on the spiritual stuff. They have to be instructed, right? They have to be told by Christianity predominantly, right, to tell them who they are. They can't think on their own. I'm gonna read this again. It says brainwashing is said to reduce its subject's ability to think critically or independently, to allow the introduction of new, right, unwanted thoughts and ideas. Right here. It says the meaning of brainwashing is forcible indoctrination to induce someone to give up basic political, social, or religious beliefs. You hear that? Religious beliefs. So when the so-called white man, you got this term called westernization. Let's go here. Let's go here. Salakia, give me 1 second. So, and this go way back, right, when this devil came into power. So he does a technique called westernization. What is that? It says westernization is the adoption of the practices and culture of Western Europe, which is code word for the so-called white man, Edomites. It says by societies and countries. So the most dominant spoken language throughout the world is English, right? The customs, the fashions that's pushed throughout the four corners of the earth is copied by the so-called white man, all right? Down to his dress attire, down to his business practices. And Christianity, all right, is the biggest religion in the world. It says by societies and countries in other parts of the world, whether through compulsion or influence. Westernization reached much of the world as part of the process of colonialism, Salakia. which colonialism goes back to the so-called white man, right? And continues to be a significant cultural phenomenon as a result of globalization. These are all code words for the so-called white man taking over the whole world with the sword, killing, raping, robbing, destroying. And actually, when he get done with that, he brainwashed the people, the kids. It says westernization began with traders, colonizers, and missionaries from Western Europe, so-called white men, Edomites, who believed their way of life, listen to this, was superior to those of the peoples in the countries to which they traveled. The occupied peoples were required or encouraged, right, to adopt Western European business practices, languages, alphabets, and attire. You hear this? All right. And Edomites are the so-called Spanish. Edomites are the so-called French. Edomites is the so-called Romans. Edomites is the so-called Greeks. All so-called white people, the so-called Canadians, the so-called Australians, go down the grocery list. It says they were also encouraged to assume Western European education systems. That's heavy. It says literary and artistic standards and to convert to Christianity. That's the most important part of all this, the spiritual aspect apparatus. It says, and to convert to Christianity. And this new form of Christianity will come with these images, these false doctrines, all right, confusion, and pushing these images, especially this image right here, a Cesare Borgia from the Borgia family. This idol, an abomination, right? And also pushing his other artwork, right? So when you look up so-called Paul, Moses, all these biblical important figures, they all been whitewashed. They're supposed to be Moses. I'm not making none of this up. But this is a part of this devil's psychological warfare using images, using movies, using books, using his influence, right? Through this technique of westernization. It's one of these techniques that they do to indoctrinate the people. That's why our people are completely gone, right? They've been given over to the ways of Babylon. Let's go here. Let's go here. This psychological warfare, right? It says psychological warfare involves the plan, use of propaganda, and this on many different levels. That's why they had to label you as black. Anytime you put black before anything, it's all automatically going to be associated with something negative, right? Black sheep, black magic, all right? So on and so forth. It says in other psychological operations to influence the opinions, emotions, attitudes, and behavior of opposition groups. That's heavy, right? So that's why people hate their own self, right? It's called self-hatred, but the so-called white man has cast these spells on our people's mind to make them hate their own self, all right? And many other psychological operations that they've done. So the scriptures commands us to be reborn, right? So let's go here. So you have to be reborn in a spiritual sense, and it starts in your mind. It says Romans 12:2. It says KJB. It says at the very top, and it said, and be not conformed to this world. So this current system, right? These celebrations, these trends, all right? All the stuff that Jake get into, right? Being caught up in the worldly affairs. You have to take care of your business, but you can't get consumed with this world. It says, but be ye transformed, listen to this, by the renewing of your mind. Your mind controls your body. What you do, what you don't do, what you think, what you don't think, how you behave, it's on every level. You have to renew your mind. And part of renewing your mind is learning this doctrine all over from scratch. You can't drag none of the external baggage that you learned into the world, Christianity, black unconscious community, right? Whatever doctrine or genre of belief you was in, you have to scrub everything and come and start from scratch. That ye may prove what is good and acceptable and perfect will of Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shai. So we're to conform to the ways of the Lord, all right, not the world. So, but this starts in your mind. It's psychological warfare with thus It's spiritual warfare. Right? These things manifest themselves through your mind, right? But most of our people are brainwashed and they don't know it, right? And that's why it's a miracle that we woke up to this truth. All right. And Lord willing, we of the elect. Because there's no other way. Before we woke up to this truth, we was all bugged out. All right, we got so much things that we did was, it's off, man. 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says, therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, right, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. So that's the old way of thinking, right? So you're not to think how you once, thought in the world. Those things are supposed to be done away with. And you're supposed to be understanding this truth and applying it. Getting out your own feelings, man. Get out your own feelings. Get out your own way. Get out your own emotions, right? And bend to the will of the Lord. It says, therefore, if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature, all right? And that's on many different levels. Old things are passed away, starting with the mindset, especially you women. You can't drag none of that feminism or none of that madness with you in this truth, right? Behold, all things are become new. So you have to have a new outlook, right? And it comes with the washing of this word, the correct understanding of the scriptures. And you see our people don't have any idea of what the hell is really going on, or what the Bible, or they don't even know what the truth is, right? They all confused all over the place, right? Completely turned out in Babylon. You put 20 of our people in the room, they're gonna have 20 different set of ideas and opinions about what is what. All right. Again, westernization, it says, and convert to Christianity. So that's why our people are so-called Christians, right? And they have this very bugged out understanding of the scriptures. The Most High, they don't know the Most High, right? In their mind, they think they do, and they don't know they brainwash, right? And this is psychological warfare at its finest, all right? Again, these images, you have to throw this image, this character, right, of this guy that they created named Jesus. That's why you got to drop that name, right? Because if you can't drop that name, you done. That means you can't get the truth. And the Lord's not dealing with you. It means you're not of the elect, right? And you have to throw these images out of your mind. And that's right. Again, these things must be thrown out of your mind, these images. And that's why people really hate themselves, because the so-called white man has done a masterpiece of a job, right? Pushing these lies, pushing his agenda, pushing this madness, right? He actually came up with this character, Jesus, and gave it a personality. And our people pray to these dumb idols, right? And you got people that worship themselves. They worship their so-called money. They worship, their wife. They worship the things of the world, right? But you have to come out of this brainwashing and indoctrination, right? And that means you have to throw these things out of your mind. There's no other way I can say this, right? And if you of the elect of the nation of Israel, you of the elect, you're going to be able to understand this. If not, you're going to stay in the state that you're in. Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Allah Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, by Hashem, Rachak Wadash. Shalom.